Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Yoga Break It Down. I'm Yoga Suze. In this episode, we're going to go over breathing. Last episode, we went over sitting positions and now breathing. Probably two things that you didn't realize that you needed to learn how to do. We're going to explore two breathing exercises. One is called Ujjayi. Sometimes it's pronounced slightly differently. And the other one is commonly referred to as alternate nostril breathing. Why do we need to learn how to breathe or do specific breathing exercises? So commonly you might find yourself holding your breath, not breathing fully, breathing into the upper part of the lungs and not getting low into the lungs. Whenever you see recommendations for what to do when you are really stressed out, it usually includes recommending breathing. So we need to know how to take deep breaths, and we need to practice it a little bit so that when we're in real life situations, we can breathe. In yoga, the Sanskrit word for breathing exercises is pranayama. Prana means breath, and ayama is control, so it's control of the breath. Our lungs span about half of our torso, and we just breathe into a tiny little part of it. So we're going to start to explore all the corners of our lungs, as I like to say. Today you're watching this video and you're learning the exercises, so you'll probably choose a seated position. It could be on the floor, maybe on a chair. That's often more comfortable. Once you have these exercises down and are breathing on your own without the video or just listening to me explain the exercises again, you may choose to lay down at that point. I always invite you to do that if that's more comfortable for you than a seated position. We're going to explore two breathing exercises in this video. The one I refer to as the Sanskrit name, Ujjayi, and though I swear I learned to pronounce it Ujjaya breath, and I'm not sure what the origin was of that. So that may be totally wrong. My memory may be incorrect. So I will go with what I know now is the proper pronunciation of Ujjayi for this breath. The translation is victorious breath. And one thing I love about a lot of the names of yoga poses, yoga exercises, is often for the simplest exercise where it does not look fancy and it does not look like you're exerting that much, they often have the most powerful name. So I love that this is called the victorious breath. It is sometimes known as the baby snoring breath or the Darth Vader breath because of the sound you will make. I am not one who tends to think that you need to practice certain breathing exercises. We are doing these exercises to get us in the habit of breathing so that more often in our life we are actually breathing and not holding our breath. So this is just a launching pad that we can always come back to. So you may decide these exercises are really helpful and you might choose to do them daily. Others of you are just going to call on them as needed. So the Ujjayi breath is often called the common yoga breathing. Sometimes in yoga classes or yoga videos, they might ask you to do your yogic breathing, and this is what they're referring to. So once you get it down, it is not so noisy, but as you're learning it, I recommend you make as much noise as you can to really get used to it. So this one is interesting to explain. We're breathing in and out through our nostrils. So mostly in yoga, we're breathing through our nostrils. Occasionally there's exercises that involve breathing through the mouth or at least exhaling through the mouth. And some people talk about deeper advantages for breathing through the nose and cautions about breathing through the mouth. I tend to say we need to breathe more often. So if you're congested, if it's difficult to breathe through the nose, if you're experiencing anxiety or panic and the breath needs to come through the mouth, that's the only place it's going to come in and out of, go for it. One advantage of breathing through the nose is the nostrils are a smaller area than the big open mouth. So it takes longer for the same amount of air to come in and out through the nostrils. So when we slow the breath down, what takes us longer to have an inhalation or an exhalation, we tend to slow down, and it tends to slow our heart rate and calm us down. So that's a real big pro for breathing through the nostrils. Okay, so for our Ujjayi breath, we're going to inhale through the nose. And as we do that, this is what I notice happening. We are trying to get a slight constriction somewhere back in the nasal passages or around the back of the roof of the mouth area to make an even smaller area for that breath to go through. And this is what I experience with it. My tongue tends to lift to the roof of the mouth, and I feel myself sort of puckering at the top of the roof of the mouth and again at the back of the nasal passages. So see if you can feel yourself pucker in the nose. I know that's a strange description, but that's sort of what I experience. And we're going to start to breathe in. As you do that, I'm going to recommend you shoot for making a snoring baby sound or a snoring sound. So it might sound like this. And then the exhale can be normal. How long should each inhalation and exhalation be? As long as you can get it. As you take this breath in, you're going to take in a little and take in a little. See if you can direct the breath low into the lungs. See if you can visualize where the lowest part of the lungs are and direct the start of the breath there so that as you take in more breath, it has room to fill upwards and also outwards, expanding in the lungs and expanding into the rib cage. Sometimes it can be a nice exercise to time your inhalations and exhalations. It is not unusual once you get more proficient at breathing that an inhalation and an exhalation can each be 30 seconds. They can extend to much longer than that, but I think 30 seconds for each when practicing breathing is a good goal to shoot towards. Let's try that again, the nice snoring breath. So you're puckering in the back of your nostrils, and you're going to start to take that breath in, and you're going to make it snore. So something like this. And when you think you can't take in any more, then you start to let the breath out equally slowly through the nostrils. Like I said, once you get used to this style of breathing, it becomes quieter. It becomes an ever so slight sound that probably only you would notice. And I use this breathing technique when I'm in yoga classes, when I'm in line at the store, when I'm stressed out, whenever I need to connect to my breath, this is what I use to get connected. And then once I feel like I have a flow, then my focus is simply to take as slow, deep inhalations and exhalations as possible. Don't disregard the exhalation. It's equally as important as the inhalation. The more old, stagnant breath you release, the more room you have for new, fresh breath. So once you have the Ujjayi breath going, and then you feel as though you can trust yourself to breathe in and out with not necessarily using that technique. It may happen, it may not. This is how you might focus. When we start breathing, even though ideally our breath is continuous from the day we're born, throughout our life and it never stops, we hold our breath. We do. So when we're starting it up, let's start with an exhalation. So focusing on exhaling through your nostrils. When you're starting on a deep inhalation, you're going to focus way down into the lungs, the lowest part of the lungs. So you're thinking at the lowest part of the rib cage in front before it tapers off. That's where the lungs extend down to. So you focus on directing the breath there. You take in a little breath, just like when you're blowing up a balloon and it's really taking a lot out of you. You might blow a little bit and then hold it, and then blow a little bit and then hold it. You're doing something similar as you're doing your deep inhalations possibly. So you take in a little bit of breath way down low. You might pause and reevaluate, but you're not exhaling yet. You take in a little bit more breath, and it's starting to be more around the rib cage. As you start to expand in the lungs around the rib cage, the lungs will expand and actually push against the ribs a little bit, and the rib cage can actually hinge open just a little bit with those deep breaths. Then you direct the breath a little bit higher, taking it in a little bit higher, and the lungs go up right around the collarbone. So you're not stopping. You're not stopping down here. You're going a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And then when you think you've taken in all the breath you can, then you release a little bit from the top, from the upper mid, to the mid, to the lower mid, to the lower, and then ending with releasing from the lowest part of the lungs, and maybe even tightening the abdominal muscles as we're doing this. So our Ujjayi breath prepares us for our regular deep breathing, or we might find we do the deep breathing with that Ujjayi practice. This is what I think of as the purpose of breathing exercises. If I just suggest that you breathe deeply in and out for 5 minutes, and you don't have a specific way that you're doing that, your mind may more likely wander and the breathing may not happen as deeply. So if we have a specific way of breathing, a specific task, assignment that we have to focus on, that means our mind is focused on our breath and not on what we need to get at the grocery store, not on what happened yesterday that made you mad. It's going to be more likely to stay with the breath. As we take these deep breaths, it can relax us, it can calm our stress, but it can also bring up emotion. You're breathing into areas that you may not have breathed into for a very long time. It is not unusual that at sometimes during our yoga practice or our breathing practice that we find ourselves sobbing. So don't be surprised if that happens. But again, be prepared, because we may need more resources than just ourselves for our yoga. So whether it's we practice with a IRL teacher for our yoga to help us through all these things that can come up, whether we decide we really need a talk therapist once in a while to go through some of the things that come up for us, or just reach out to our best friends, our buddies, our family, as needed. So this next breathing exercise is referred to as alternate nostril breathing. If we're breathing through one nostril at a time and not two, again, same amount of air that we want to take in to the same capacity of our lungs as we did with the Ujjayi breath, as we did with some normal deep breathing. But if we're only breathing through one nostril, not two, it's going to slow it down. It's like if we're on the highway and they're doing road work and they've reduced the 3 lanes to the 1 lane, it's going to take longer for all those cars to go through. Same concept. In yoga, there is a practice of hand and finger positions referred to as yoga mudras. And with this alternate nostril breath, sometimes you will find instruction that specifies which finger to use. And I am going to be less specific though. I am focusing here on the breathing exercise and not the part of the yoga practice that involves the specific hand and finger positioning. I just want to give you a heads up about this. So again, if you're following in a yoga video or in a yoga class and the teacher is very specific about that finger position, if they're not explaining during the class why that particular finger, feel free to go up to the teacher afterwards and they may have a wealth of knowledge of the benefits of using a specific finger in the exercise. I'm going to be a little more vague in that area and we'll just focus on the breathing. So, but we will use a thumb because your hands are divided finger side, thumb side. So we will be using a thumb. I'm using my right hand in this exercise and I'm going to start by covering my right nostril with my thumb and then take a deep inhalation through the opposite nostril. So I'm sipping the breath in. All of the slow practice that we were doing earlier with our deep breathing, starting directing the breath down low and then slowly filling the lungs upwards and outwards, getting into all the corners of the lungs. And then when I feel that I can no longer take any more breath in, I'm going to use one of my other fingers and I'm going to place it on the opposite nostril and release the thumb. So I'm going to exhale through the opposite nostril. Take your time. Just like we did in our other deep breathing exercise, you exhale a little bit and then pause. You got the upper chest breath out. You exhale a little bit more from the lower part of the lungs and then pause. And then you focus on the lower area of the lungs. And then again, you may incorporate the belly, the abs, as you're pushing the rest of that old stagnant breath out. So take your time, making sure you fully inhale, gain all the area of the lungs, and you fully let out that breath. Then when you think you're done with the exhalation, you're going to inhale through the same nostril right here. So on each side, it's uncover, exhale, release. So think of this side as a vessel. So I'm exhaling, then I'm going to inhale. Then I'm going to cover that nostril that I just took the breath into. So I took it in on that side. I used that vessel, and then I'm going to release it out the opposite side. So I'm releasing a little, releasing a little, releasing a little, releasing a little. And then when I think I've got it all out, I'm going to inhale through this same side, taking my time. Then covering, releasing the other side. It can be confusing thinking of an exhalation coming before an inhalation, but try to get this down in your mind. It's sort of like learning dance steps here. So you uncover one nostril, you exhale, you release it all. Think of that as one vessel. Even though the air from that nostril is filling both lungs, let's think of it as one vessel. We released, it's empty, now we can fill it up, and we're transporting to the other side. We release the finger, we exhale fully, and then we inhale. The reason that I chose alternate nostril breathing to share with you guys today is this is a great exercise if your mind wanders and you really have a hard time focusing on breathing. Because with this exercise, we have a task for our breathing. We are incorporating a hand which is right in front of our face. So it's hard to ignore the hand. It's right there in front of our face. And this does not only involve the breath, but it involves movement of the fingers. So we really have to be mentally aware of what is going on at each moment. So I highly recommend this exercise if you really need to calm yourself down, as long as you can. Sometimes we got to do something else first. Sometimes this is too involved. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Yoga Break It Down. I'm Yoga Suze. Remember that everybody needs yoga. So that means Dessa needs yoga, firefighters need yoga, Amazon delivery people need yoga, and you especially, baby, you need yoga too. So I hope to see you here next time. Bye-bye.